In 2015, the People's Bank of China valued the yuan by 3%, the largest depreciation in the past 20 years. This prompted domestic pressures to label China a currency manipulator based on fears that China intended to undercut American economic growth. U.S. policymakers, economists, and intellectuals were embroiled in the cauldron of anxiety that permeates Western observations of China. In the wake of the currency manipulation crisis, China has been represented as an irresponsible global actor, a threat to the international economic order, a wanton currency manipulator, and a thief of American jobs and capital. However, these representations are nothing new. The reaction to the People's Bank of China was just one event in a long line of Western dramatizations of China's rise during 13. The cultural anxiety is by the uncertain strategic intentions of China. The rise of China's instigated intensive anxiety. The source is China's growing prosperity. According to Crusan, most of the world's large economies stuck in liquidity trap China by engineering an unwarranted trade surpluses, imposing an anti-stimulus there, are acute concerns about the dark side of China's growth from environmental degradation to climate change. China's forays in Africa raise serious concerns about its global ambition there. Our anxieties about continued human rights abuses, political repression, ethnic conflicts, and rampant corruption in China. And these anxieties exist because the United States imagines itself as the guarantor of security and survival of this geopolitical prism sustains a perpetual state of fear that justifies imperial expansions of paternalism. Pawn 14. U.S. geopolitical imaginations about the rise of China has been central to the U.S. self-imagination. Security and survival predicated on ever-expanding frontiers, seen as crucial for its self-renewal, provided the impetus for Americans to turn to new frontiers in the Pacific and Asia. The USA's foreign policy tradition is a strategic article of faith that the USA ought to dominate the Western Hemisphere while not permitting another great power to dominate Asia. This mindset sustains a state of fear. China is seen as a natural candidate to dominate Asia and upward U.S. primacy. It is predicted that this Chinese Monroe Doctrine would push U.S. forces out of the Asia-Pacific region. The USA's fear of losing can explain almost two Asian democracies in 2010. The U.S.-led Trans-Pacific Partnership Framework, the Indo-Pacific, offers the rationale for the Pentagon's air-sea battle plan that's pivoted in Asia. It serves a dual purpose of constraining the rise of a peer competitor in Asia and preventing regional integration from being inward-looking and exclusive. The second purpose reflects another U.S. geopolitical imperative, imperial geostrategy to maintain security and defense among the vassals, to keep the barbarians from coming together, and imperial anxieties have their roots in a colonial desire to know and understand objective Chinese reality through a quest for scientific certainty. This colonial desire is the motive current that shapes the flows of knowledge production and reception. Pawn 12. Knowledge is a social property whose reception must depend on its intersubjective appeal to collective emotion and social desire. Writings are driven by the desire to write, which is conditioned on the desire to read, know, in the wider emotionally imagined community. Social desire makes certain knowledge desirable and its production possible and profitable. The role of desire is often invisible. Objective certainty is an illusory effective desire. When certainty is not within reach, the subject turns to the elusive comfort of emotional substitute. By fantasizing about an uncertain other's assimilability, one can gain certainty. One may arrive at a sense of predictability by reducing that other to menace. The other can be converted or must be a threat. Fears and fantasies figure prominently in colonial desire. Colonial desire finds people of other races and colors disgusting and repulsive. Hence, an object of fear and paranoia. The latent form of Orientalist knowledge reveals recurring latent desire, fears, and fantasies about the Orient. European colonial fears and fantasies have been repackaged as multiculturalism, norm diffusion, socialization, and so forth. And China is simultaneously represented as a threat and an opportunity by the West. China appears as both an unpredictable currency manipulator that sends shockwaves through the global economy, and also as a rising economic powerhouse that presents the possibility of mass investment in return. Neither of these representations adequately deals with China's reality. Instead, they are derived from a political economy of fears and fantasies, which both informs and complicates foreign policy practice. Pawn 12. The more we write debate about China, the less we seem to know about it. It is time to reflect on the ways China knowledge has been produced. The China through these paradigms is not nonchalantly say one problematic object, nor are these representations objective. They are tied to the Western self-imagination, desire, and power. The self-professed knowing subject resorts to fear and fantasy to make up for the absence of certainty. With fantasy, the West can envisage an immensely soothing scenario of opportunity, engagement, and convergence. Threat imagery helps sustain a containment policy, provoking similar responses for China. Threat imagery justifies a tougher approach to a country which now not only appears unreceptive to our tutelage, but also grows menacingly stronger by the day. And that economy of fear and fantasy produces ethnocentric representations of China through a dominating and colonizing Western gaze. Pawn 12. China Washington's had a lot to say about what China does, but very little about what China says and thinks. China writes literature overflows monologue statements about what we think China thinks. Both paradigms routinely ground China and Chinese subjectivities on Western subjectivity and self-experience. China's rise has quite different meanings for people inside China. The ethnocentric representations of the threat are vastly inadequate as the knowledge about a change in China. The rise of China does not seem to be about it either deliberately challenging other countries or making itself an opportunity for them. China watching resembles the colonizing gaze that they colonize. It is objectifying. One that refuses mutual gazing. To engage in dialogue with Chinese subjectivity would imply mutual gazing, which could threaten the Western self as the knowing subject and destabilize its assumed universality. And colonial representations produce mass imperial violence by framing others as backwards, exotic, and threatening. It justifies imperial violence under the guise of spreading civilization. And on 7, post-colonial theories highlighted how Western knowledge representations of the non-Western world are neither innocent nor based on some pre-existing reality, but implicated in the West's will to power and its imperial adventures. The mask of objectivity hid relations of inequality and domination with European imperialism. The capacity to convert these representations into truth on a systematic mass scale and production of knowledge about the other three representations goes hand in hand with the affirmation of differences between the self and other. Imperial expansion is made possible by their essentialist representations as requiring paternal imperialism. These provide the cultural framework in which others were seen, described, and represented. The non-Western subject is rendered a noble, visible object of disciplinary power. Of the observations then are presented as objective. Behind the innocent sounding descriptions lay the violence of imperialism, classification of non-Western peoples went hand in hand with the hierarchization and racialization of cultures. Thus, we demand that the United States federal government should substantially increase its economic and or diplomatic engagement with the People's Republic of China. Solvency. The 1AC is an example of the method of deconstruction which we apply to the resolution. Through this deconstruction, we disassemble the narrative of U.S.-China engagement, which, in the status quo, is based in colonial desires and artificially constructed dichotomies. Our deconstruction unpacks the Eurocentric myths and inform Western fears of Chinese currency manipulation and trade policy. Only the affirmative can open up the potential for emancipatory futures. Hoffman 12 is China's the future. What future lies at the popular thinking in the Western media view the rise of China like some stereotypical villainous cartoon dragon using currency manipulation and unfair trade policies to destroy Western job scenarios or caricatures rather than identifying new perspectives on the push and pull towards a broader and deeper image of possible futures. China for theory and its mirror image of peaceful rise can be described as colonizing the future and closing off options by projecting values into the future. To open up and transform the future can require unlearning physical myths or worldviews. It is critical to deconstruct the underlying assumptions, narratives, worldviews, and myths about the rise of China. Legitimacy of future images rests upon the established and accepted ideas of the past. The future cannot be predicted, but uncovering preferred images of the future allows us to open up the future. And deconstruction exposes the arbitrary nature of hierarchies drawn by China watching, reveals the ways in which ethnocentric representations of China produce racialized and violent orientations. Bond 12. The deconstructive approach is employed to question the underlying dichotomy of reality, knowledge, and Western study of China, the paradigms of China for China opportunity, or discursive strategies of other. Deconstructive analysis is concerned with the complex connections between these paradigms and Sino-Western interactions. I define the primary function of deconstruction as serving to expose the arbitrary nature of oppositions, dichotomies, and hierarchies that have been taken for granted in a certain discourse. Deconstruction helps reveal the discursive and social practices of exclusion and marginalization. It is only through knowledge and discourse that social reality comes into being. The world exists independently of knowledge, but we can never know that because the existence of the world is inconceivable outside of language and our interpretation. Facts are not the primary concern of China watchers. No scholar is likely to make a career out of collecting and writing on such trivia alone. Soon as meaning is an issue, brute facts will be hard to come by. Reality is inherently discursive and interpretive, and our affirmation is a deconstructive move of intellectual decolonization, discarding the pretense that we can be disinterested, rational China specialists. Instead of China watching, we must begin with self-watching, an orientation that problematizes our own thought, vocabularies, and self-identities, which necessarily implicate any discussion of the resolution of Han 12. Since there's no China outside of knowledge, China must already be colored by representation. Deconstruction is a way of taking a position to generate both critical and constructive reflections on the way China knowledge can be better produced. It is no longer adequate for us to be China specialists. China watching needs self-watching to make itself part of its own analysis, whereby the necessary context can always put China in perspective. The unconscious Western self-imagination, the mind-knowing subject, is the very antithesis of self-watching. Self-watching requires a critically reflective mind. We have to examine how we register our observation, how we come to our judgments, how we describe them, what purposes they serve us. America's Cold War attitude towards China was based on fear inspired by America's experience with Nazi and Stalinist totalitarian regimes. The two dominant China paradigms hinge onto a ubiquitous collective psyche and emotion. Such self-criticism entails problematizing China watchers' own thought, vocabularies, and taken for granted self-identity as disinterested, rational observers. Self-watching demands a deconstructive move of intellectual decolonization and the latent neo-colonial desire that continues to actively operate in Orientalism, knowledge, and China watching. Self-reflection should extend to the shared collective self of the West as identity and foreign policy. Take the negative image of China's brutal sports system. The same China may take on different meanings when we are willing to subject ourselves to similar scrutiny. We cannot comprehend why the Chinese behave in a certain way until we pay attention to what we have done to them. Imagine Western self is integral to the real world. By making one better aware of this connection, it helps open up space for emancipatory knowledge.
So what comes after your deconstruction?
What comes after it?
Yeah.
I mean, the idea of deconstruction is that it enables the creation of knowledge that can resist.
Okay, sure. What form of knowledge production is this?
It enables knowledge that is accurate and not racist or ethnocentric to be produced because of the fact that assumptions that exist in the status quo necessitate the production of racist and ethnocentric.
Okay, how do you change these ethnocentric representations?
Okay, first of all, I'm going to say that the affirmative is not any form of like a reformist proposal. The idea of the affirmative
so you know we're reading anti-blackness.
Yeah. So,
all right, actually, I have another question.
Sure.
So who in here fears China?
Who in this room fears China?
Yeah, in this room.
There you have it.
Okay, no. Follow-up question: what do you do to change their perception of China to be anti-black? What is the
So we deconstruct assumptions about China that are
assumptions?
Okay, so the assumption that China is simultaneously a threat and an opportunity, which is not based in reality. The idea that China's status as a threat should be blown out of proportion by the media, which is what our Zhang evidence talks about. Now, what that does is in the affirmative ballot, the idea that the affirmation of the app would signify that that is a good method.
How do you apply that to the resolution, and does it spill over to larger forms of coherency through interpersonal relationships?
Sure, so when you say how do you apply it to the resolution, what exactly do you mean?
Yeah, how do you apply this to international relationships?
Sure, so again.
Yeah, solvency. No, not on the interpersonal, international relationships. Like, why would U.S. hedge be affected by your kind of self-reflexivity? Oh, you mean the USFG is fucked up? Like, what do we do about that? How does that change knowledge production?
Sure. So our pawn evidence indicates.
Which one? Wait. Which pawn card? You read like 7.
Okay, the first one indicates that all of international relations is based on subjectivity. So that's like a prior question.
Do you change subjectivity at all?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. How?
By investigating the latent neo-colonial desires in our psyche.
Colonial desires, which ones? Tell me about these colonial desires. No. He said yes.
Sure, the contradictory desires to securitize and use China as an
Okay, sure. We say we have a history class. We can say the USFG is fucked up. They've done wrong things. Where in those contradictions do we finally take accountability and say, yes, we changed knowledge production?
That's what the affirmative is. Literally the
How?
affirmative. The affirmative, if you look at our very last card, the idea of self-watching, we pay attention to the assumptions that we have, the beliefs that we have that are wrong and fucked up, that are racist or ethnocentric.
Okay, you pay attention to them.
And
How does that?
yes, we pay attention to them. We expose why they're incorrect, why they're based on fantasies and false assumptions, and in doing so, we open up the space for emancipatory knowledge.
Okay, what does the space look like? What do we start talking about? Like media representations, like China's not actually anti-black or something?
We're not making any argument about how China isn't anti-black.
No, I mean like they're not colonialists then?
No, that's not an argument.
Okay, cool.
Anthony, you might not want
One observation. Is anybody not ready? Oh wait, I'm not ready. Please. Anybody not ready now?
Civil society is founded upon a master-slave relationship that exploits and alienates the black body modernity and derived from the middle passage, creating an ontological condition of blackness as is systematically exposed to continuous violence as well as intent. Black is better about impossibility, black is very intensive, human suffering by that's why after the civil rights movement, you might posit into operational analytic pretty political theories and attempt to be autonomous and essentially clearing masters and slaves apparently based on Georgia's believe this in the wrong direction, we would find ourselves in solid ground, which would only mystify the question of the proposition that cities in civil society are less of doing even contemplate the possibility for emancipatory traffic for the black position disintegrates in the thin air of the imaginary of these same civil societies parasitic on the middle passage, no slave, no world, slavery without labor, rendering anti-human, generally dishonor, perpetually open to produce violence, and voting control structure or analysis cannot be approached to revoke against or reversals and circles and insane civil society. The onus is on the one who approaches the masters and slaves economy, but on the one who argues that there is a distinction between slaveness and blackness of the injection of whiteness into international politics which China creates the conditions of present-day violence and launch anti-black violence into the global sphere of politics. Donnel and 13. Western definition of retroubled or ever powerful Western states have a skin color and opportunities radiating circles of civilization, conflicts and Chinese notions of the civilization based on fundamental difference and Western glacial classification hierarchy shape the discourse surrounding the creation of the modern state. Western notions of race center of the Chinese society was who Westerners living and working in China. They created ideas about singular race identity as singular fixed cultures inheritable that were translated into notions of the same power. Now, the anti-blackness is a global phenomenon that is mapped onto bodies through a structural positionality. Blackness can be an absolute signifier of deviance globally that's covalent in sex and 3. Race matters are no longer simply black and white. The economists who use smarter politically setting and effectively excluding discarded the colors in middle explorable parts of the black and white spectrum. We now enjoy the vast literature on these issues, hence the humanity detailing effects of position racial discourse, which would become the US has always been multipolar. The secondary race have always been quite complex. When we say we need to move beyond the black and white, people say those black people we feel so uncomfortable. I know all about blacks, but I really don't know anything about Asians. We also need to be considered the category of all the race, all the since race is a constructed category. Too often we forget that our blacks, everywhere blacks are everywhere. The black is blacks, the black is the blacks, the blackness functions as the primal racial signifier. Now, self-watching affirms a paradoxical oxymoron in which bodies of whiteness are able to assume themselves ethical after meaningless confrontation with themselves. The concept of engagement will always be a vehicle of white supremacy's expansion, absent the complete destruction of the world. It's Napo and all 13. New anti-racism industry and white liberalism are struggling to live with the legal legacy of brutal and racism that brought them about the positions of them as privilege. They want to be ethical stories who properly enjoy their real lives alongside the black lovers and children. This feel how white people have again been developed as forgiveness, and we can simply move on to the basis of common humanity. Impulses getting some perpetuators of racism to repent, reveal, ask forgiveness, and understand any moral validation for the white race studies and to become to a cul-de-sac when it is discovered that there is no rescuing whiteness and there is not based on continued black oppression. Only solution was the expulsion of whites from black affairs. Yes, the white being is intrinsically to domination privilege is what needs to be destroyed, and the possibility of structural superiority is about what was to be ended today. We won't resolve racism, but will only reposition whites to a place where they can think of themselves as ethical instead of include them ending their white world so we can be human. Now, self-reflect reflexive studies of whiteness are ultimately self-congratulatory in their criticism of creating a narcissistic drive to embrace white supremacy that's not meant for. Whiteness studies to make whiteness visible, so far that the visibility is seen as an identity, the forms of white privilege. We worry about the desire to be speak intellectually or empirically about whiteness. We have verified whiteness studies we experience centered on whiteness. Whiteness studies might become a discourse of love which shows this hated narcissism that elevates whiteness into a social ideal. Whiteness studies would here be about white people learning to love their own whiteness by transforming it into an object. I can do love scholarship within a field that's full of ambitions of exciting which about what whiteness could be if it was all to become invested in itself and still in its reproduction. Now, white supremacy is a global system of oppression that normalizes genocidal modalities of violence and domination that's Rodriguez and Tevin. White supremacy may be a social organization that produces retribution, institutionalized military conservation of hierarchy, human dominated difference enforced through social coercion, and violence and restructured by genocide, possibility, including physical extermination. White supremacy is simultaneously premised on and consistently inventing universalized conceptions of white to consider white supremacy as essentially make social formation, facilitates and essential modalities that oppose American globality. The U.S. regime would be coming from country and investigated in a two-fold sense of technologies of racial carceral racial domination had descended to localities beyond the U.S. averting against confidence, the racial formation of punishment and death against harm on the very surface of the U.S. regime are in fact generally unremarkable, yet is precisely the regime arranged new bubbles every place to normalize structure and geography beyond the American appreciated momentarily services and spectacle for geopolitical subsumption. Political principle regime is several they were the place at which person who would delegate which is today or does rationalize and specify technologies of violence beyond one of the particularly misfied institutionality of the discrete narrowly bound we know is presented to the jurisdictional institutional formalities and states of ownership. Now, this always will the affirmative impacts or conflictual moments of disorientation of blackness is constituted by a performative and structural violence in every instance. Their analysis is set up subject to vertigo that they can never account for the gratuitous violence against black flesh as Wilkerson 11. So the vertigo is a sense of the one is a movie and another was stationary world bombed by a class of grossly symmetric forces. So the vertigo is vertigo the event of sensation. One is ostensibly spinning another by stable environment. The one environmentally is perpetually unhinged up to relation to the balance and hobby analyze. This is objective vertigo. These is structural as opposed to performative violence. Black subjectivity is the intersection of performative and structural violence. Human suffers continued violence by black people subsumption by violence is imperative about necessity not to perform contingency is indicative of legal ontology which is radically different from the political ontology of essentially being constituted by discourse against form of violence. When she makes a fully discursive moment for verbally black, there is no concept no conceptual purpose of suffering and disposition which are analogical to the myriad amounts of various which explain the disposition of human subaltern self vote negative to engage in an unflinching structural analysis of the ontological position of blackness. Their possibility for ethics and freedom resides in a rejection of the affirmative ratification of democracy. The state and civil society resisting the lure of anti-blackness to a genealogy of history's constituent reward is the starting point for imagining a new world. That's Contest of 11. Except for agency reasons because of his institutional imperatives when encountered radical critique within our in terms of state which whatever natural is and visibilize anti-blackness state and society or inherently unethical rather than redeemable in the any struggle towards future demands and non-political critical analysis rather than consider explicit ratification of these institutions in terms of which they are predicated public spaces have been able to open door for invention a viable freedom of necessity the overlord of loss in the history process of dehumanizing anti-blackness the involvement of the woman and his causes as well as in persistence rather than being optimistic. Can any realistic talk to be defeated or rematch new world projects that make use of imaginative devices and can't rest without knowing the imaginative devices exist for the sake of survival requires reconstruction of society with what is the ghost of slavery inside the hopes of transporting present these projects attempt to rewrite African Americans and bringing the herald on the outside the dominant narrative trying to rewrite as an era of progress that we have left side behind of extended to a space of institutional normativity and trying to ground the fundamental and unending the nature of slavery kind of rejoinder of uncritical narratives not only a sense to attend to the subject of states of social death which families are advocates it's not the victimized sense but rather a staunch activist one that be affected and is affected by a rigorous unflinching and structural analysis and a rigorous understanding of society yearning the possibilities for reinvention that might emerge when faced with the absence now case. Deconstruction is an impossible strategy that does nothing. They say it's political, but then it turns out solvency vote on presumption that it's wrong, and so forth. What is deconstruction? Nothing. Deconstruction doesn't consist of rules. Deconstruction has no specific property. Deconstruction is how the analysis works. Deconstruction is not a method. It cannot be transformed into one. It must also be made clear that deconstruction is not even an act or an operation. Deconstruction is impossible. There is no simple authoritarian and correcting constructive reading, writing, or any particular text. Each text contains within itself the possibility of vast numbers of supplementary deconstructive texts, and each of those is like likewise, open to further deconstruction in an infinite regressive. Now, self-reflexivity is not a transformative practice, but rather is aligned to the neoliberal models of governance it attains that maintains privileged positions, as Adams in 06. Self-reflexive is self-reflexive subject exclusively along to the neoliberal models of governance is the privileged subject of neoliberalism. Reflexivity, allowing mobility and thus privileged position to lay modernity is often simply a simple outcome of social change, but a vehicle for the reidentification of social division. Self-reflexivity relies on specific techniques for knowing and telling the self which imbue the speaker naturalize epistemological authority. Reflexivity is thus implicated in power relations and the maintenance of privileged position.
I'll do it. Good. Unflinching paradigmatic analysis or structural analysis. what is it? Is it a movement? Is it a thought process?
Well, two things. One, we would critique the asking of that question because it, actually nothing.
Yeah, we critique the grounding in which that question is asked because we say as blackness is a paradigmatic necessity to be the opposite of whiteness. It is the grammar of suffering, essentially, Wooderson says, is unexplainable to whiteness, right? We have to operate within the tools that society gives us through historical contingencies to reject the notion of the affirmative in favor of like not understanding what liberalism or not engaging in liberalism in the context of the act.
So, what does a negative ballot affirming an unflinching structural analysis actually do to solve any of the harms that you
A negative ballot says that the affirmative is anti-black and you should reject your scholarship. Also, affirm our scholarship.
All right, but how does that? Sure, but how does that actually materially change any of the structures that you criticize?
Of course, we are a pessimistic stance. We say that structures are fucked in the status quo. To the point that civil society was created on the backs of slavery, we say that this society is inherently fucked up, and we can never solve it.
So wait, so let me get this straight. Society is so fucked up.
No. Our alternative says that we need an unflinching structural analysis of the position of the slave. This is a pessimistic narrative that reevaluates what it means to have progress. When he says everything is fucked, he is saying that inherently, obviously, things are fucked. However, they are not so fucked that cannot be unfucked. However, the alternative
how
unfucked is
how is the alternative unfucked?
Okay,
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, the alternative focuses on the position of the slave. I look at my skin color, I relate it to the world on the interpersonal relationship that says that we say the 1AC cannot access and relates it to real life examples, historical contingencies, statistical disparities, and the status quo that we try to explain through alternative that you cannot through the framing of whatever the fuck.
So I understand that, but how actually is your analysis?
How do you understand the ontological position of blackness? How do you understand our alternative on the interpersonal?
I understand that your argument is that anti-blackness is ontological in civil society. So then, how does the alternative make any form of material change? You said it is possible to unfuck everything through the alternative, so how do you do it?
Oh yeah, sure, this unfucketry resides in the rejection. I like this word, all right, look. Resides in the rejection of this liberal narrative, right? Saying we can supply more tools, right? We can create the tools of, if we just allow more media representations of the 1AC, we can deconstruct the way that we come to engage with China. We reject that notion, right? No, it is not buildable through civil society. Our rejection relies within this paradigm of inequality.
So it's just
by stepping back, then we can create tools and actualize communities like Black Lives Matter who go into the streets and say, no, fuck 12, we're going to create actual things like networks of police that work underground as hell, not for society, but against it.
So how does the alternative result in that kind of stuff? How does it
I'm not going to answer any more alternative
We
questions.
say stepping back from civil society.
It's the case and the critique. Yeah, it is. At least it should be.
Actually, I need a full outside.
Yeah, we'll take care of it.
What's the room name?
We didn't put it up.
Yeah, actually, I haven't had it put in. Just 1 second. Sorry. Is this in, yes. All right, we're good.
Sure. Everybody ready?
Realist International Scholar.
Oh, wait, what? Are you ready or not?
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay.
We're ready. Sorry.
Okay.
Realist international scholars paint China as a contradiction, both a threat to and a financial opportunity for the U.S. since the U.S. can't fully know China. We dramatize its rise by manipulating media representation of the country that's Showdown 13. We don't know what to make of China primarily because we don't know what to make of ourselves. There's a gap inherent to American subjectivity produced through language because language is fundamentally alien to us. That's punch. While the U.S. exists in a world where objectivity is impossible, so it searches for seemingly objective meaning via pseudo-scientific studies of another. In this case, China, the opposite deconstruction of the resolution in order to reveal that there is no objective meaning at the root of our simultaneous fear and admiration of China. Thus happens while we steer clear of the inevitable scapegoating that occurs in an attempt to suture the bar at our subjectivity. The scapegoating leads to
endless imperial violence as an on and 7. The fact that deconstruction doesn't have a clear deal is precisely why every round is key to form deconstruction. It's impossible to know when people will see the meaninglessness inherent in neocolonial desires to securitize China, so we have to use every opportunity we get now to line by line there. Ralph evidence doesn't apply. First of all, it assumes a textual analysis, not an analysis of desires, which is clearly what the one I see is. When I see cross-sex checks, and second of all, it's at least tried after the affirmative because semiotic shape reality that was in the overview. Then they read this evidence. First of all, it assumes that we are deconstructing privilege, which obviously is not the outcome of deconstructing desires. Again, the overview. And two, it assumes we say we know ourselves. That is a quote from the card. We are obviously saying we don't know ourselves, and that's the entire point of the affirmative criticism. Interpretation, unless the negative can come up with a unique opportunity cost the affirmative in terms of breaking down anti-blackness, you vote affirmative. That means links of omission, starting point links, and other artificially generated links are not legitimate reasons to vote negative. And case solves and outweighs the K. Racist discourse is now inscribed semiotically, not just physically. While technically Jim Crow laws are off the books, but the way police enforce supposedly neutral laws is overwhelming and black. The method of deconstruction is the only one that is able to question the racist and often conflicting desires of the federal government and its subsidiaries. And case turns the K, ignoring the semiotic aspects of racism, allows racism to proliferate and manifests itself in material structures. Once again, Trump proves our obsession with dismantling institutions has ignored the deep-seated racism ingrained in many Americans buying perm. Do the app, then the alt is the best option here, and no social death history proves better than 9. Historians argue that while enslaved Africans could not have brought intact institutions with them, they did maintain aspects of their cultural background. Studies have evolved from assertions about general heritage to more precise demonstrations of the continuity of worldviews, categories of belonging, and social practices from Africa to America. Scholars have of slave resistance studies, the slave revolts, and conspiracies that advocate the idea of the resistance to demonstrate the basic humanity of the enslaved was known about the chattel bondage, did not confirm Patterson's definition of slavery. How did he explain rank among slaves, scale of reputation and authority accorded by slave master like slaves had been uniformly subjected to the permanent domination. They could not have revolted as often as they did. The perseverance of African culture, even among second, third, and fourth generation Creole shaped collective action. And they say this novel link. First, this link assumes that self-confrontation is meaningless. Burdens on them to prove that because all of our pawn evidence indicates that disrupting conflicting fantasies is a key step in disrupting imperial violence. And two, we are not trying to absolve ourselves of racism. We're trying to deconstruct unconscious structures of racism. We are acknowledging that we are anti-black. And three, no, Telos, even if they win, that we're just apologists. There's no impact. And turn the implication of social death as ontologically inevitable, inscribes a fatalism toward politics, which makes agency impossible and oversimplifies the history of resistance. Brown and 9. Social death stands for experience both of the effectiveness of his text and of the silence of slaves. It is easier to describe the continuity of structures when one applies countervailing forces and the political activity of the weak rather than pathologizing slaves by allowing social death to stand for our experience of slavery. It might be more helpful to focus on the enslavement of their situation. Social death beyond a description of slavery. Imagine it as an experience of self. Here the problem. Here's the promise and the problem with the content of our most fully apparent when she contends that what it meant to be a slave. She invokes Patterson's idioms, sees from home sold in the market and separate from the slave was dead. One wonders how a historian could ever write dispassionately about slavery without feeling complicit. For dispassionate accounting has been a weapon of powerful lament seem to require that harm and overlook significant political victories. Text makes little space for consideration of how the enslaved struggle with alienation, emphasis on the personal damage wrought by slavery encourages her to disavow social history that has demonstrated slave's remarkable political capacity to forge fragile communities. Social death is a natural condition produced by dislocation. Social death is a compelling threat seem to accept the idea of enslaved commodities as finished product. The women aboard the Unicron were not living dead. They were the mothers of ghastly new societies, and they reuse link turn racism has become semiotic. That's upon only the affiliated structures of conflicting fantasies that cause racial tensions, and two, they confuse self-reflection and narcissism. We don't investigate ourselves as a form of absolution, but as a form of recognition and deconstruction. And anti-blackness is not ontological, but rather historically specific and contingent. White and black are signifiers and can't have any inherent meaning. Held to the 13. Colonialism is about the construction of white and black subject. These are in no sense necessary identity. Colonialism is contingent. Neither white nor black has value independently of their relationship on their own. They don't have a determinative value for social division. They institute presents itself as ontological, but whiteness is the master signifier. The lived experience of black subject have their source in the ontological differential. So colonialism is ontological differential. Exclusion is not determined once and for all. The framework for deciding other than same is nowhere greater than ontological self, but just political specific modes of othering are nowhere decided in advance. As ontological fatalism and half of bipolar is the ontological fatalism of Wilderson's argument. The social does not have to be divided into white and black. I mean, these signifiers are never necessary because they are signifiers. This relation is really on the side of the ontology and generally constructed identities rather than the ontology of the social, where which refers to unfixity. Whiteness may be so deeply sentimental, but from this it does not follow that the void of black meaning functions as the ultimate subject on which all possible forms of sociality are set to rest, and turn their theorization of anti-blackness ignores the exportation of slavery to other parts of the world, particularly Southeast Asia. Prefer the pawn evidence on the specificity question there. Exclusion of other forms of anti-blackness is the exact same logic they purport to criticize, and their argument elevates anti-blackness to an all-pervasive force that explains all oppression, that reinscribes its inevitability. Specific analysis of racism and crucial. Anderson and 3. One major problem in whiteness literature is the ramification of whiteness as a concept. This impedes the possibility for empirical analysis. Whiteness comes to mean racial domination. Whiteness becomes slippery, elusive. There's little room left for nuances, analysis, and motive. Whiteness emerges as omnipresent and all-powerful white. People are turning to key agents of historical change. Most writers essentialize and reify whiteness as something that directs Western history. Dyson suggests that whiteness is identity, ideology, and institution, but if it does all these things, it becomes an analytically useless concept. Empirical investigation requires being able to identify and measure a concept, and their Pinel evidence is descriptive of the status quo. The act begins with the idea that racism codes the way in which we engage other countries, but a significant portion of that coding occurs through linguistic practices. That's why you prefer the affirmative, and deconstruction allows whites to be a benevolent absence. This is key to eliminating the association of whiteness as a domination of black imagination. Hooks 92. Black people in the U.S. live with the possibility that they will be terrorized by whiteness, that the mask of whiteness represents it as benign. Then this obscures the representation of danger in contemporary society. People believe racism no longer exists. This erasure that uses the representation of whiteness as terror for the mass reality. If we conceive that terror is responsible to white domination and an indication of how little this culture understands domination, repudiating us and them dichotomy does not mean that we should never speak of ways of observing the world from the standpoint of whiteness. They distort perceptions. That clarifies the radical possibilities that surface when the positionalities problematize repositioning has the power to deconstruct practices of racism without capacity to inspire terror. Whiteness no longer signifies the right to dominate. It becomes a benevolent absence, and the neg may be right about the structure of the world in terms of anti-blackness, but the absence necessary to analyze how and why that operation stays in place. Even if we should be pessimistic, they turn pessimism into fatalism, which is politically useless and also scholastically useless. And their Copeland of sex and evidence assumes that anti-blackness is transported globally the same way it was in the Middle Passage. That's the term that was above. Self-washing prefigures in the material. A true paradigmatic analysis requires understanding the discursive justification for what is thinkable and articulable as an expansion of violence. Brian 16. Linguistic representation encompasses the material discursive practices are related to material phenomena. My being analogies with the other begins to find relief in destructive self-other relations, such a stance in gender, not ethnographic focus concerned not with an epistemology that represents difference, but one that seeks to articulate the social cultural effects of our material discursive body, performative auto-ethnography, charts the ways out of doorness of humans and temporality, out of ethnographic, labor gets things done. I'm grappling with my own impossible, unknown, terrifying futures in the moment of the past, present, future liminality. I'm looking toward another ethnography practice where nervous conditions reside within the inherent uncertainty of an encounter rather than an anxiety. Ethnographic nervous conditions we may feel caused by the embodied desire to continue work for social justice, and the absence disaster through all rejections of the absolutes of government, unpunished for the imperial expansion and genocidal wars waged in the name of knowing otherness. The all can't explain Vietnam, Iraq, or anything else upon evidence mentions this. Only fuels the desire of the government to wage invisible wars for their own security, and racial violence cannot be understood solely through the black-white paradigm. The framing of violence actually, no, skip that part. And all their linked arguments refer more to the status quo than the world post the gap. Our ethics functionally non-unique. The K and the alternative links against the right to move in, which would be constrained the world, the alternative which makes all their impacts inevitable. And now their framing of violence fractures interracial relations, which are key to producing any resistance to racism beyond debate. Alcohol 3. The discourse of race has been dominated by the black-white paradigm. The paradigm into all of their racial identities and through the black-white binary to understand race in a way to assume that racial discrimination operates exclusively through anti-black racism can be affected by racism. The black-white paradigm. Black-white paradigm.
You say you investigate desire, correct?
Sure. Yeah.
Why was Michael Brown killed?
Why was Michael Brown killed?
What was the desire to kill Michael Brown, an innocent black man?
Jack, you want to take this one?
Sure. So the idea is that we're deconstructing desires about China watching and desires like. Plus,
wait,
all,
no, you just climbed
throughout
your whole 2AC to solve for the K. How do you deconstruct this ideology of desire that
okay,
went into
now
killing?
I understand your question better. So basically, modern society is based on self-other dichotomy. I think that we can both agree on that
definitely.
point. You think that this dichotomy is basically sure. This antagonism is fundamentally filtered through the idea of the middle passage. We think that it's fundamentally filtered through semiotics.
No, my question is how do you locate the desire and how you deconstruct the desire to kill black people gratuitously?
Sure, I can give you two answers to that. The first is that we cannot isolate exactly what a desire is because that's the whole point of our panamint, that a subject, due to the fact that subjectivity lacks.
Wait, so you literally can't tell me what a desire is in your whole 1AC?
No, I'm trying to explain to you. What the 1AC says is that it's impossible to fully know another subject's desire. However, what we will say is that the purpose of the 1AC is to deconstruct assumptions that lead to racism. So, although we cannot tell you exactly
that
what
makes
the
sense.
thought
That makes a bit more sense. How do we know that China is not a violent being?
We don't. That's the entire point of the
It's the entire 1AC. So why?
We can't know whether China's a violent being or not. Okay. And the assumed knowledge of whether it's violent or whether it's not violent, whether you assume it either way, justifies imperial violence.
That's
you just map a preconceived knowledge.
What does deconstruction do for people that are killed gratuitously? Like, what does your AF methodology translate into the material, like when conflicting black people?
First of all, we criticize the hegemonic discourse that semiotically produces the structures that allow people to do that, because we contend that
semiotics and the way we think about the world, our desires, shape the material. And second of all, the alternative doesn't solve any better. Like you literally.
Okay, so desires. Actually, yeah. So desires. Back to this. What is a desire?
What is
Can you like
desire?
list out a few desires to kill black people, or the assumptions that are used? Because I'm not getting a like coherent list from you.
Like the assumptions.
Like
that
how
go
do you
in
solve
line?
the case?
How do we solve the
Yes.
case? Okay. Again, racism is structured through a semiotic antagonism.
What does that mean?
This means that it's rooted in the realm of the mind. It's not about like these physical structures.
And specifically in the realm of language also, which
Yeah.
actually Wilderson agrees
Wait,
with.
okay.
And Wilderson agrees, huh? Semiotics, huh?
No, I
when does he
tell-
talk about semiotics? Ever.
Actually, he's Lacanian, so he talks
He
about
said,
the
no. When does he ever talk about semiotics?
I'll
Any
tell you.
quantity?
I'll
Okay,
tell
one more
you.
question, actually.
Wilderson makes the argument that the grammar related to suffering is incapable
Is
of explaining the
unconceivable.
language. Exactly. That is a comment on semiotics. It's a comment on the idea.
So why does that mean that the app solves semiotics? All right, so start fresh.
I'm putting it on the box.
2 cards. I don't know, the 2AC was kind of just like a spread all, so I don't know. Overview, and I'll signpost.
Like, shouldn't be filled separately. Shouldn't be filled separately. Like, do I have to
No, it's just next to me.
Well, then should I put on the care?
Oh, on the K, it's just a K. K in the order of the overview, and then kind of line behind. Is anyone not ready? Civil society emerges with the middle passage an absolute dereliction of blackness, founded upon the exposition of blackness, gratuitous violence, the paradigm of humanity gave coherence to this antagonistic relationship. America and international actors are bounded in grammar of the settler master, the relationship that conceal the anti-black nature of world through liberal narrative progress and redemption that is parasitic upon blackness placed outside the majority. The 2AC has conceived a thesis claim that civil society is inherently unethical, a product of destruction of red and black. First, the ontological constructs the very rubric of the world, which means all of their deconstructive pedagogy is relevant because the use of G should be reformed so we can reinterpret semiotics. It does not mean that there is a possible strategy on interpersonal relationships. Now, self-flexivity would continuously continued accumulation of blackness. Now, another impact framing concession here, that a major impact framing concession is objective vertigo, while the affirmative is a response to a conflictual moment of normalcy. The momentary rupture on civil society, preservation of anti-black modalities condition is a condition within the world. Their analysis can never count, and the cross can never check for the untold destruction of blackness operates insidiously. Post-affirmative discourse, this functions both as a link and impact framework because they're focused on subjective vertical things that change when we interpret it as and what the fuck blackness is or how they relate to the interpersonal. What happens to post-affirmative? These sketchy answers is the reason you for our methodology of the ontology, but that'll be more later, and it reaches the black narrative. Now they fucked up this link to make it. Don't allow them to extrapolate into one AR. First is the argument. The first argument they have is a link to the skull. No, it is not. It's a link to your performance within the round. It's in the novel evidence. Their concept of engagement is itself problematic because they want you to be ethical, reconceptualize ontology, reshape threat construction. But these feats are paradoxical when trying to disconnect themselves from structure. They compromise civil society self-correcting nature and providing new tools to fuck over blacks, which reifies itself into the repulsive competitive nature of civil society. That is something that the middle passage and the explanation for that'll be the root cause to being later. Now, anti-blackness has no conceptual frameworks to draw for no reason with coherency. The cane coherency, because self-reflexivity does not operate within the interpersonal process proves to is the almond evidence. You shouldn't be rewarded within your identification of the problem. Yes, we get that you're saying blackness is wrong. Yes, we get you can identify problems, but whiteness reinvents itself into the political juggernaut itself to say, yes, I fucked up, sorry, not sorry. It's the product of narcissistic drive that downplay their conformity to learn to love their own whiteness and dump it back onto our black scholarship, independent reason to vote negative on presumption because they never tell us what these deconstruction actually is until the 2AR try to fuck us over in the perm debate. But that will be in the 1AR if you're wondering where that is on the flow. Now 3 is concession of subjective vertigo as a link argument after moves stigma for cooperative impact turns this impact turns risk assessment because the body to be placed in positive use or subjective decision without the root is based on the perception of China that goes back for this round and how it is they have no offense to stem from. They see in sex and link turn. Now this is not a case of international relations. That is primarily false. No, we say that whiteness injects itself into foreign relations and politics as a whole. The reason that the reason we don't have political agency is because it takes away from governmentality and how it insidiously operates. You prefer our analysis. Now they say, oh, I can't explain Pan. I could literally not care unless the alternative is an unflinching structural analysis of the ontological position of blackness, the destabilization of the affirmative comfort and the self-correcting nature of civil society. We don't even have to win the alternative, just rather the affirmative one does nothing and 2 further perpetuates anti-blackness. So the links I did above, the historical interrogation of blackness and how it requires a rejection of their political intolerance went to a liberal state that renders black in the invisible death road to investigation and manifestation within the round and outside of the round only. This motive critical engagement produces the possibility for imagination of black existence. Co-consciousness that placing the absence of blackness at the forefront of political analysis shatters the illusion of progress that sustains modernity, denying the affirmative's new tools. Now they say they're disavowed black and social death / black-white paradigms of product of whiteness forced to be complicit with structure to criticize and tenets of social death are undeniable. 1, natal alienation, the slave agreement, 2 is violence, which is our root cause argument that they conceded. 2 is unjustifiable and the violence done to black, which is 2 is violence, and 3 general dishonor. Their evidence not in the context of decay whatsoever. No reason they can engage our black authorship because they don't even know what their Hudson evidence says. That will be labor. Social death is one concept or an event as a frame when it comes to meaning labor, which is grounding. You reject fatalism to always have an extra motive to try to reproduce structure and reject the people who are fucking over the status quo. Why would we want to engage with your exclusive narrative of whiteness? The grammatical ontology debate, the grammatical subjectivity of slave constitutes what it means to be black and an anti-black world to be everything that the white is not. This explains semiotics. Black is a state of being that puts body to an appropriate state, just orientation with the body. Tractable is in summary becomes an intrinsic condition of being for color. There is no excuse, no method, just for coherence. Why? Today we see racism spawn when the African was first depoliticized through the middle passage and manipulated for the preference of their own subjectivity. Now we can take into account anti-black within this application to higher scholarship and globalization. This is a sequencing argument. Our analysis allows for a better analytical framework to perceive change to the lens of the K that's number and 11 of black frameworks, which we usually for analyzing racial identities, racial realities, as well as addressing the issues of criminalization. The framework wants to being black, the world's much more significant to shaping life, chances of automatic gravity being non-white, the informal direction of African American communities, then rather than trying to extend the majority to suppress all minority groups as a form of equality in the manner of which to American hierarchy and black racism to the political project that we in logic of social organization considering anti-blacks as a logic of social organization gives greater clarity to the nature of the state with which immigrant rights activists constantly engage and confront. The state is not not only racial but racist, and not only racist but specifically anti-black. Explained by Sexton, every analysis that attempts to understand the complexities of racial rule and machinations of racial state without accounting for black existence is doomed to miss what is essential about the situation. And Asian American studies scholars are quick to emphasize the African Americans gained citizenship before Asian America, as if racial subjugation of African Americans is somehow unrelated to the practice and logic of civil society. But black people are never guilty of being black, which is ontological, not behavioral, not to be conflated and subsumed under frameworks that come around the immigrants and rights advocates. We must come to accept that black and innocent is not oxymoron now, or oxymoron in the world we have lived in. Now they try to make an African diaspora argument. Yes, we have a root cause that explains when the African was first politicized. They moved on to Asia. They moved on to from Panacea to other nations to be colonized. That is the very groundwork in which the grammar of suffering becomes the international tools. When we're not political enough to be included in the fucking federal government because we're not black enough for your own subjectivity to be pushed back onto the state of disorientation is the very state argument that they're trying to make. We turn this notion to the conceded root cause. Don't allow them to bring it back up in the 1 AR. This is the form of aggression that they are trying to no make out of with their permutations that will be more in the 1 AR as well as framework. Now this is inherently, even if they win, their entirety app is good, then blacks cannot be included within that legal scholarship. We say that's bad because blacks do not live within the codes of civil society, but rather underground in a form of antagonism. That's Pac-12. Reading literature in this way reveals a pathological obsession with the depth and limits of possibility, conclusion with civil society, submissive opposite meaning, reception, the persistence of structural suffering, manifests the system of oppression and forecloses the access to civil society, which still pivots to the discourse of rights and inclusion, which operates as a relevant damaging American structure that has been and continues to be in place. Black life is not social in a universe found by the codes of civil society or citizen or an object of history and heritage. All things the colonial society has become common with colonizing capital, is common with labor. Black life is not lived in the world that liberal lives in, but it's still underground. Black social life, the president is always conscious of the Constitution would have limited social death by utilizing the terms of right to alphabet and the awkward reading of the text that allocates space to think of what it means to perform blackness. Now they make a couple arguments. One is fatal, is oversimplifies history. No, we read the explanation of history and how it empirically has been reinvested through Rodriguez evidence as a prison industrial complex. We are the new slaves of America. They say racism is semiotic. However, civil society is what constructs the grammar. When I walk up to a white person, it's what he tells me. It's the interaction that spawns the creativity to the code of semiotics that gives me my own subjectivity. That explains their whole bullshit psychoanalysis argument. Now, Diaphora was stated above. Now, the link says that quote, no, it's a link to your performance and the way you engage in debate and explain your app, which is inherently bad. There's no political imagination that blacks should be included under major reject your scholarship. Don't ever read one of them. No for content.
Good? Okay.
Yeah.
Is the app possible in the world of the alternative?
What?
The app possible in the world of the alternative?
No, because we say the alternative is mutually exclusive. We can't do both.
Okay, that's great. You say the blacks aren't included. What does that mean in the context of our affirmative?
Yeah, we're saying that this kind of deconstruction only reifies itself into a self-redeeming thing, right?
Okay. Deconstruction reifies itself. What does that sentence mean?
What?
What does it mean, deconstruction reifies itself?
Well, I mean, like, based on what you have told me, right, to say, yes, I fucked up, we have an accountable instance of the 1EC. 3% Chinese depreciation, something about lifting.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up. How are we apologizing? We're not saying, we don't have a telos even. Like,
your self-reflexivity. If you're not apologizing, then what are you doing? Identifying the problem and then not questioning? It's you said that you conceded that it is anti-black. Okay.
The entire thesis of the affirmative is that we're questioning and investigating our desires and that we don't have an endpoint. If this is feel-good politics, when do we get to feel good? Because we don't say we're in the telos yet.
What? Is that a question?
Yeah.
The idea is this is feel-good. You say the app is feel-good politics.
I didn't say that. I said it's a self-fulfilling prophecy of the liberal narrative.
It's pretty much the same thing. If there's no end, how are we
because there is no end. You can't specify it. We're saying that, like, when we ask you the question, where should it end or what would it look like?
I have a question. Do we simultaneously have to have an end and not have an end?
What? We should say you should have some kind of imagination of how these politics are transformed or some kind of explanation
What's
of how
the imagination in the context of the alternative? You literally
I've explained the alternative. What do you mean? What happens
after the alt?
The alternative one, we don't have to win the alternative. That was my 2NC explanation. It's a rejection of liberal narratives of progress and saying that we can be fucked up but still progress within history. It is the backing.
That's fine. You've answered my question.
Again.
You say that fatalism is good. I guess what's
No. Whoa.
Okay.
I don't remember saying that actually.
Okay, sure.
I said that fatalism is bad. Pessimism is an actualizing lens to perceive change. That's not for. No. We are not fatalism.
Okay, I have a question then. What does the alternative do?
The alternative is An unflinching structural.
Not what it is. What does it do?
It rejects the affirmative. Okay?
Okay, what does it do to change structures of anti-blackness?
It realizes the structures of anti-blackness and rejects the notions in which they were created. The topple of faith in civil society.
What does that
Rejecting
do?
civil
What
society.
does that do for the people that your partner asked me about in cross-section?
For
What
me,
does that
it forms, like Black Lives Matter, it forms an underground in which we reject civil society,
So
right?
you do have a telos.
What? What's a telos?
Killing
What's
his
a
mouth.
telos?
It's an endpoint. You do have an
It's an
endpoint.
endpoint. No, we do not have an endpoint. It is the
You
imaginative.
just explained an endpoint.
What?
Do you have one?
No,
or not?
I explained a process in which we can finally get to some kind of endpoint, some imagination.
Endpoint,
I
got it,
spawned.
thank you.
No, it's not an endpoint. It continues. The one you see has no way to get to that. Yo, whatever.
Smell the Wi-Fi? Is in what?
Okay. So the order is, Perm, I would honestly get a new sheet.
Yeah.
Framework, I would put that on the same sheet as put Perm. And then Case is on the same sheet. No, Case on the same sheet as Case. Perm, framework, yeah. And then Case.
You have any extra paper?
Yeah.
Okay, so you said the order.
Perm, framework, Case.
So the firm framework, the one flow, and then the flow case.
Yeah. Okay. Is anybody not ready?
They don't get a permutation. We are direct criticism of your methodology. There is no overcoming racism as a psychological condition, and it is directly reflected in your method. Reading of what you see, our advocacies are mutually exclusive. The advocate's commitment to understandability and openness to deconstruction and self-logic. We demand non-flinching analysis that requires absolute commitment to the destruction of America. Our strategies are foundationally opposed. Now, fluidity is that their permutation is an instance of whiteness changing its identity to avoid criticism and fraction our methodology versus it is the same liberal. It is the same reason that Black Lives Matter is failing as a revolutionary movement. Liberal democracy justifies itself by being down for the rebel and still implementing policies which are violent towards blackness. We are critiquing your complaints and this means a few things. One, they are making a permutation as they link and reapplies anti-blackness, and two, permutation can never solve. We must have an unflinching analysis, and three, they don't even get a permutation in this debate. We've substantially proved our methods are mutually exclusive. Now, fungibility is that the permutation makes the alternative a commodity that can be appropriated and moved by self-watching. The teleological fungibility and parasitism and our Wilson and sex and evidence indicate that externally for anti-blackness. How ontology is that the accuracy answers me that they are not down with the Caddo analysis comes from a position that attempts to understand blackness, which exports violence into other populations. The idea that of coherence is one that civil society uses to justify racist action. The fact that they read Hudson, the fact that they read Brown, the fact that they denied social death theory as an argument means that they can never get a permutation, that they can never solve for decay, and reform is the fact that you say we are just a link of omission, and the purpose holds is whiteness par excellence. They say that we don't do anything, and that is directly anti-blackness, simply hides the violence that is done by white civil society by proving the civil society's innocence because nobody's doing anything. Now, their permutation alternative lens doesn't make any sense. They don't isolate what lens of the alternative. They do just a blippy argument. You are either analysis or you are not an analysis. You are not an analysis that was mutually exclusive because now the permutation coalitional strategy takes out its policy. Civil society founded on the decimation of white bodies in opposition to the assimilation boost of the whiteness. They were negative on negation. That's Harman and Willerson 3. Negative captains of hostile infraction. We think of that as a refusal to represent the over rankings. They were coherence by knowing whether they are not instrumental amount of diversity conflict between white women and white women or that conflict, even as articulation has solidarity, we give the notion that is coherence because we are its underability, the logic of the political discourse, we see every need for instant blackness, something to make us by a racist in order to see racism as slaves, even today, are never allies framework. The role of the ballot is to vote for the team who best combats the structural conditions of anti-blackness. This is better for debate as a structure because it allows for better conditions for people that would otherwise be excluded from civil society. The analysis just reifies civil society in this debate space and makes whiteness apologetic. They ignore the exposition on the violence on black lives. So that was the whole truancy analysis. Unlike their framework and accent comes from a view from nowhere that obscures embodiment ways whiteness invisible. It's the anti-5. The embodies self-respect and deep cover someone who is for truth. We are told the reason for nowhere, hence white ultimate presupposes and speaks for all of us when mentioning his or her place. Identity whiteness is a form of authority. Speak apparently from nowhere. We black bodies have activities reducing instantations about the body, as position in historical practices and discourses. The body's meaning is controlled to all the repetition and iteration that is certain signs of presupposes certain norms. It is not only the black body that defines the authenticity projected upon white gaze, but the body is also fundamentally symbolic. The trick of white ideologies give the appearance of fixity, which in bar turns the black subject from seeing him or herself with the internalization of the white gaze. Now, whiteness was hypervisible, as blackness was hypervisible. There is the passive of the white gaze, racist, socio-historical, and epistemic conditions that emerge to construct not only the black body but the white body as well. Now, your framework links you are your perpetuation of civil society, and you try to avoid our offense by discounting our analysis and saying they are just links to the status quo. Even though we read methods, even though we read links to your specific method, which is just whiteness. How 2AC crossings proves that you can never explain blackness and the desires that go into it. You just say it's desires, man. That makes no sense at all. This hot extrapolation of the desires that go into it. This will be more the case pull up. Actually, go to the case right now. Deconstruction never reaches a decision. If that is true, they can never take an ethical position to blackness, or the decision is possible, and their decision is, or their decision is possible, and it just shows how fucked up they are that they refuse to make a decision about it. That means they can never get the permutation, they can never solve decay. Only our analysis is key. The extended growth card, they massively mishandled it. It is the best because they are a textual and also a operational analysis and a discourse analysis. You don't do anything. Deconstruction does nothing. It quotes Derrida and says that deconstruction is not a process or a method. It can be turned into one instead. It's something that always just is a couple of impacts. One vote negative on presumption. They don't do anything with the one thing. We are a menace of non-action, which means that putting up doesn't make anything. And you should run even two reasons why the ballot is key. The deconstructing is something that will always exist and it comes on our existence when the text is written. This means that the rating or evidence or even construction of 1EC is sufficient to result in on 1EC. This functions also as an inherency argument because deconstruction has always been dead, which proves the ridiculousness of a biblical method. Now, should the affirmative Derrida says that deconstruction is not a method and cannot be transformed into one. Any attempt to codify it and make it unscalable, usable, strategy, definitely, these terms of order potential because it's tied up to certain practices which only could doomed to fail. Now, indeterminacy does have actually. This means to vote out, next vote out for deconstruction always requires a second yes. Serving their names after their deconstructed reading is more true to their method.
Starting now. 37.
It's going to be case, and then the criticism, in the order of like the K, and then the like grammar stuff.
Alright, so is it like all the case stuff and then framework and stuff?
Yeah.
Alright.
If I need to make a change, I'll stop it.
Alright.
Everybody good?
Western subjectivity sees itself as an objective view of the world, unaware that this is impossible due to the inability of subjects to fully interpret reality. When Western subjectivity fails to fully map reality, it creates fantasies relying on false dichotomies like threat or opportunity that's pain the state, then uses these simplifications to justify warfare and imperialism to securitize against major threats like the spread of communism in Korea or WMDs in Iraq. That is a non-structures of racism managed to remain in place through the production of knowledge that legitimizes those structures and prevents the production of contradictory knowledge. That is banned. It is impossible to change racist structures without first investigating the flawed assumptions that we possess because knowledge builds on other knowledge. That's Hoffman. Now they say that there is no end to deconstruction, which means that we can't do anything. First of all, they have made contradictory arguments throughout the entire block about how we both need a telos and don't need a telos. First of all, we do have an endpoint in the sense, and we are firm about the method of deconstruction that it will result in the destruction of the assumptions that we critique about Orientalism, about China, about racism. And they say that we're textual analysis. No, we're not. Literally, that card is the wealth cards in the context of Derrida reading books and trying to just determine like any possible means that he could derive from them. Not our specific deconstruction per pen of analyzing the structures of Orientalism. Now you can go to the K. The neg might win that they're correct about how the world operates, but the app is necessary to analyze how and why that operation stays in place. The two discounts to their totalizing view are nuance and specificity. Even if they're right that we should be pessimistic, they turn pessimism into fatalism, which is scholastically useless. Now the nuance argument is that essentially okay, they say we can see the root cause argument, which probably should frame this flow. We did not concede the root cause argument. The argument was that Orientalism is that they cannot explain all of they cannot explain all of racial discrimination. For example, they cannot explain Chinese exclusion. They cannot explain the discrimination based on skin pigmentation in India. Neither of those can be explained in the context of slavery or the Middle Passage, and they couldn't do that in the blog. Now they say that civilized society is inherently unethical. That may be true. We probably agree with that. However, if that is true, there's no way the alternative can do anything about it. Literally, one question in the cross-section of the 2NC, what does the alternative do? And they could barely even tell you what it would do to change the structures that exist, except say that it would somehow lead to Black Lives Matter. There was no explanation of how that would work or why a negative ballot would do anything to actually change any racist structures. Now, you can prefer the affirmative because you can prefer the solvency of the affirmative, which is specifically that deconstruction of our assumptions, because bad assumptions about racism and Orientalism exist in the status quo and shape all knowledge that exists, thus preventing the creation of new knowledge makes it nearly impossible to create other forms of liberatory knowledge. Now they say that the focus on the self is ethical is bad because it provides new tools. Here, I will do the link today. First of all, they say we want to be ethical. First of all, he couldn't answer in cross-sex how we were self-congratulatory if we never get to the self-congratulatory part. Also, we have to deconstruct what ethics are. This isn't a new spin. It is literally the app. Now they say this notebook card, first of all, it assumes that self-confrontation is meaningless. The burden is on them to prove this because all of our pan evidence indicates that disrupting conflicting fantasies is a key step in disrupting imperial violence. Also, we are not trying to absolve ourselves of racism. We are trying to deconstruct unconscious structures of racism that exist in ourselves. There is no self-congratulation here, and no telos means even if they win the apologists, there's no impact. Now also they're on before link. First of all, extend our term that racism has become semiotic. That's pan. Only the app engages structures of conflicting fantasies that shape racial tensions. Now they say that we engage in subjective vertigo. First of all, they have to win their political ontology arguments for this. Now you can extend our Hudson evidence, which they didn't really answer. They kept saying the blackness is ontological. Here's the reason that it's not, because Wilderson assumes that anti-black that whiteness is a master signifier that therefore shapes all of discourse around it. White and black are contingent because they are signifiers. They are representations of reality that inherently do not have meaning because they are signifiers. Also, extend that there's no social death. There wasn't really a warrant for why social death does exist. Here's the reason that it doesn't: because of slave rebellions and other and the creation of new cultures, which our evidence talks specifically about. And they say that when the act perpetuates anti-blackness, if semiotics shapes racism, then that's probably wrong. Slavery is the root cause. I answer that. Now they say that we fail if we ignore blackness. That's not the case. Now they say the root cause of racism. I answer that. They say the reading literature colludes with whiteness. There's no link. We're not deconstructing literature. They say civil society constructs semiotics. That may be true, but we have to. But because semiotics reifies civil society, allow it to continue to exist, because we cannot produce knowledge about why civil society is bad. It is necessary. It is necessary to deconstruct those assumptions so that we can then produce new knowledge. Now go to permutation. Perm do both probably solve the best, seeing as I've answered all their link arguments. The one other one is that we're governmentality. We invest in the fact that given status quo, subjectivity engagement with the state is impossible, and we are not a legislative action, so that doesn't apply. And we critique international relations just like them. At worst, the all links to the K. They say we make the all to commodity. There's no explanation why that's the case. They say denying social death makes our methods exclusive. No reason why the 2 hours too late. They say link of omission argument is whiteness. Also extend our interpretation. Links of omission aren't good enough because they don't actually disprove the app, and they decrease focus on disproving the specific methodology of the app. We win that the app can make our deconstruction of assumptions can make life net better. That's probably a reason you should vote for the app. And they say the permutation assimilates black and blackness into civil society. That's not because we attack civil society also.
Actually, no, don't say okay.
Sorry.
Start it out.
Alright.
Ooh, Malcolm, you're on the edge of the stand.
Alright, I'm going for the critical.
Switch the flow. Also, you gotta wait for the third charge. What are you doing?
Eli.
Move the laptop over.
Oh, wait, move it. Oh.
Because the legs are on this side.
Can you fix this for me, Jake, please? I don't know what I'm doing.
No, yeah, because sometimes it tips over when it's on the outside.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And that's, you're down a lot.
That would have been devastating. That would have truly been devastating to an arm.
Eli, do you like our topic shirts?
Is that new? I got one.
Isn't that great? It's Yao Yao's idea.
We went to that yet?
Laugh for the bait. It's such a good idea.
I kind of forgot people were recording me.
Malcolm just said, this is the white gaze.
I'm going to show my grandchildren. Well, I'll make a reference to the case, actually. I mean, you should probably flow the case.
Yeah, float on the cake.
Wait, no. Oh, yeah, on the case.
I was saying, don't float the cake. That's not good.
You should probably float it.
Alright. Get down to the nitty gritty. Okay, just a bunch of framing issues. I promise I'll signpost where I'm going. It'll make sense, kind of.
Just like, are you going to the perm flow or are you going down the cave?
Oh, it's also the turn flow. They'll probably tell us.
It's like the 3 reasons to an R, alright? That one. Yeah. Alright, is anyone not ready? Three easy ways to vote negative. One, they consider the distinction between objective and subjective vertical with no alternative explanation to how to interpret voter sense theory, which is devastating. Their impacts are experiential, where ours are ontological. The affirmative is a parasitic divergence of the question of ontology, which is sequencing for the alternative, because the black is constituted by violence, which is intrinsic suffering, which means voting after voting for a world where even if we have better conditions of leaving, even if this team load somehow ends, black will always be outside it because it puts you to a fixation of alterity. If that were something that analysis, the 2 is the fixing your epistemology always comes first, and 2 is in the in-round, out-round operation within civil society. They say engaging American reform can solve it. We are impacting the alternative shit out of reformists, and just continue to say we isolate problems within ethical action doesn't mean you have to solve for anything. You cannot form American modernity just like acting the police officer with that arresting you. We have the key to our own change. We are not going to win that slavery is parasitic to modernity, which means the question now that the state can be redeemed or the wrong direction because the state is inherently unethical, never have the comprehension to include black into their framework. State is inevitably continue to exclude and oppress the black body with no other means of product antiquity. We are winning that the only ethical action is to reject the white seed because it is in of itself anti-black. There's 3 extended role evidence on case. It doesn't matter if you're not a textual analysis. The 1AC is still written down. It still needs to be on text before it's read. That means you make any attempt to codify deconstruction reaches destroys its transformative potential that you don't explain. Also, there is introvert critique to call for the ballot. Continue your vote negative to vote out because it's more true to their method because deconstruction is a discrete process. Obviously, you do know nothing. That's vote negative on presumption on our scholarship, which will be later. And we're going for 2 links here. One is the element evidence you can fundamentally concede. If you say that sure that it's not self-awarding, then good. We don't give them the ballot. That is a very justification that you can say sorry we fucked up. That is the first instance of which you would actually not be contradicting yourself. But obviously, you're not going to do that because you have a narcissistic drive to always want to win the ballot with no explanation of how it fundamentally starts with the middle passage and transforms itself into the white libidinal economy. That is desire. That explains civil society. They say they may have an explanation to semiotic code. Yes, we do. We said that civil society creates semiotics. That's what main concession 1AR means. They don't access any of their psychoanalysis bullshit. Now, the alternative becomes a question of sequencing. They have dropped the ontology debate. We are not totally after to resolve all racism, but rather the use of an analysis of slavery connects into the present to the discarded voices. The alternative is unflinching structural analysis. We've said this multiple times. Modernity is caught civics into a question of performance. That how we engage the status quo of something is true. That how we comply. We have one despite of the claim that racial protocol lies in the foundational structure of indigenous why the black post-structure ideology. They can't solve what post-structure ideologies need, and they can't solve ontology, which means they can't solve their deconstruction. We don't have to solve, but rather indict their epistemology. Now, conceded framework role of the ballot is to vote for the team who best come back to church of anti-blackness. If you think this is us, then we already win. Now, prefer interpretation literally didn't give a counter-interpretation. No one's conceded it creates a better paper of people of color. There's a pack of evidence that all talks about its application, dedication to politics. We have the now that you prefer that we have the most in-round contextualization of what transformative politics would even look like, even if we say it's only a shitty Black Lives Matter movement. That is a form of politics that in itself denies civil society while attempting to create a new form of meaning within life. Next is the Yancey evidence you also dropped, which questions the whiteness of their authors to emphatically speak of authority absent the embodied experience of black subjectivity. Theorizing oppression must come from the black bodies as basis for interpretation of racial experience, or at least have the basis in the white grounding of your own epistemology, which you don't defend. It's a reason to reject your framing in favor of transcending white invisibility. Existential prioritization underscores what it means to live in the first place. Now, this is a value life argument. Now, on to the perm debate. Reason they're going to lose this one permutation fails. That was the co-contest evidence explanation. The 1AR explains the political ambiguity of the permutation is white block. Second to the priority of winning the ballot, the priority of providing tools, the priority of an explanation of what cannot be explained. That was the ontology debate. This course has become inherently inaccessible to black and obscure analysis, racialized nature of the 1AC. Even if we win our analysis of the 1AC, then they've still conceded that the blacks are inaccessible towards this kind of scholarship, which means you cannot vote affirmative to the access specification of the question of ontology, lack of experience, reason to reject their methodology in any form. It's not just methodology, it is the links or a reason to evaluate all of our links that we win as a reason to their content and for the form and content as a reason to reject the permutation. Third is white fluidity. Just that you also conceded your affirmation of a policy, of a political solution of dissolution of coherent identity within civil society. The link that you shift application in the 1A to try to say that we don't solve for all of anti-blackness and its ways of manifestation. You don't solve for the Senkaku Islands. You don't solve for this particular city in China. It's the way that you shift out of questioning and what the fuck you do in the first place. It just that to permutation fundamentally moves clashing from this proves black scholarship in its fourth. Finally, they don't get a permutation because they speak the experience of blackness with the Hudson cards who reject ontology. They might subject position the subject position is not ontologically dead without experience. It would mean to reject the permutation or discard the ontology of skills. They'll never be able to understand how the signifier translates into the signified without understanding its relation to the matter colonial exploitative dichotomy that they try to solve for. They are not this. Hold them to the 1AC.
It's case, then the framework slash term flow stuff, and then the critique. Pretty good? Okay.
Realist international scholars represent China as a contradiction, both a threat to and a financial opportunity for the U.S. Is this dichotomous form of thinking that justifies all self-other distinctions to be drawn? That crucial analysis of semiotics of the one out that goes conceded means that there's no way you end up voting in voting negative in this debate, and we don't know what to make of China because we don't know what to make of ourselves. There is a gap inherent to American subjectivity producing language. The fundamental alienness of communication instigates the desire for another to scapegoat. This is the root cause of all their impacts. Again, both conceded. That's the bond 12 evidence. The U.S. exists in a world where objectivity is impossible, so it searches for seemingly objective meaning via pseudoscientific studies of an other, in this case China, or in the case of the criticism of the black body. There is no evidence of how semiotics are shaping reality, and this scapegoating that the non-evidence talks about is the root of all imperial violence. The fact that deconstruction does not have a clear telos means that you end up voting negative, or you end up voting affirmative in this debate, because every round is key to perform this deconstruction. It's impossible to know when people will see the meaningless inherent in neo-colonial desires. Now on to the perm flow, with 3 reasons we win. First is the ontology debate there, for refusal to analyze the great 1-hour analysis on the fact that signifiers without signifieds can't mean anything inherently. I mean, they lose the ontology debate. And second is the social depth debate. They pretty much cold concede our Brown evidence, which indicates that things like slave revolts and etc. I'll get to that later. I mean, the black people are necessarily not social dead. Now, and then is the framing debate. I'll do the framing debate here. First, extend our interpretation. Unless the negative can come up with a unique opportunity cost the app in terms of breaking down anti-blackness, you vote affirmative. This means that links of emission, etc. are not a legitimate reason to vote negative. And first, it is impossible to be prepared for infinitely many places that we do not start focusing on starting points. This debates about the particulars of the app. And second of all, starting points and links of emission can identify a way that the affirmative methodology is actually a bad thing. And also, racism has become inherently semiotic, even though Jim Crow laws are technically off the books. People like Michael Brown and Trayvon Martin are still getting killed by racist cops because racism now operates in the realm of language and knowledge, not solely in physical structures. The fact that people who are not necessarily physical structures are hurting black people is evidence of this semiotics. Now, onto the perm proper. They say that we can see this distinction between objective and subjective vertigo, but fundamentally that's the same as the ontology. But it's all do that here. First of all, they are not going to win the blackness is ontological. A subpoint is Hudson. The Hudson evidence is great on this question, and they don't answer sufficiently in the 2NR. The white and black cannot be ontological because they're just signifiers without signifieds. That means that ultimately black and white are just marks that mean nothing. A semiotic deconstruction, like the affirmative, consult the entirety of the K and B subpoint is the brown evidence. They cannot win social death debate when the black concedes the slave revolts, and more recently things like the Black Panther movement and Black Lives Matter is evidence that black people can have agency. Patterson's wrong about social death because anybody that can have it into the status quo structure is necessarily not socially dead. For empirics to any new 2NR explanation, though they say that no reformism solves. Let me frame this debate for you. We are not liberal reformism. We are saying that civil society is dead. We are not saying that it's irrecoverably dead. Civil society is only dead because it is structured by semiotics. So an analysis and deconstruction of those semiotics and those latent neo-colonial desires necessarily solves the affirmative. Now the raw evidence there, 2NR explanation is not good enough. The fact that we are not textually deconstructing means that we don't get caught in the Derridian trap of deconstructing the topic. Also, he says that the app fails because it's textual. Yes, it is typed up, but it's not all analysis of the text and it's analysis of desire. That's a silly argument. Then they say vote negative to vote app, but they clearly didn't understand that the case debate in the 1AR was an answer to this. You don't vote negative to vote app because we are not deconstructing everything. We're not deconstructing the base. We are deconstructing very specific desires that lead to racist colonization. Then they say the role of the ballot, but the alt doesn't solve all. Do the alternative work here? What does the alternative do? All the 2NR said was that it's unflinching structural analysis, but could not answer the 1AR's arguments that there is no obvious connection between a structural analysis of civil society and actually creating Black Lives Matter or breaking down civil society. This means that they don't meet their own role of the ballot, despite our constant asking and cross-checks how the alternative serves to change anti-black violence. Quote, what does the alternative do? They don't have any claim for what the alternative actually does. And they say that Yancey means that you reject our scholarship, but that's not responsive to the pawn evidence, which indicates that introducing new scholarship to deconstruct Chinese subjectivities is good in this debate space. And since we've definitively won the ontology debate, they can't win that they outweigh. Then they say now extend the permutation to both. They say perm fails because it's ambiguous, but the alternative is also ambiguous. Then they say that we're just trying to win the ballot, but it's not a question of ballots. Ballot is just an affirmation of deconstruction if you vote for us, or an affirmation of the alternative if you end up voting for them. Then they say white fluidity, that they can see the 1AR explanation that power is necessarily fluid, so we have to operate in a fluid structure. Now, on the link debate, they extend only 2 links. They say that we want to be ethical, but he cannot answer in cross-text how we are feel good politics, so we never get to the feel good part. That is, we have no telos, and anyway, there's a telos double bind. They have literally said multiple times throughout the debate both that telos is good and telos is bad. That's probably a reason that you can end up voting affirmative because you have no idea what the alternative is. And 2, to the ethical link, we have to deconstruct what ethics are. This is not a new spin. This is literally in the 1AR. And then they say the op-ed link, but link turn racism has become semiotic. That means that they can't solve anything.
These 2 current answers. Yeah, we are not prioritizing one thing over another. Yeah.
Congratulations to the teams making it to the finals and Democratic
I had some trouble with this. I decided that well, the first question I had to ask was whether or not the permutation was even a thing. I think the app is correct. I think that the app there might be links, but I don't think the links fundamentally say that the app is anti-black. I think they say that they are at a risk of doing something that is anti-black. I don't ultimately think the fluidity links. I think I buy the defense to those, and I ultimately just. I have so much to say, and I don't want to keep everyone here. I voted app on the permutation, and I'll explain in more detail later as well.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, maybe come back.
So I saw that explain what you explained. It was not contextualized the topic or much less the app. And I like the way it's about the topic. I don't know, it's just me. I think there was a good debate. It just was not super contextual, I thought. I also believe there was a lot of impact from the Showdown, which was really difficult to like vote out, I guess, or something in general. I also think there's a lot of kind of waste in the race and the semiotic argument. It was never impacted out. It was never it never resulted in anything. So yeah, I'll let that out.
Okay. I found this debate difficult to judge. I think there were a lot of missed opportunities. The Twitter I found very persuasive, but also very new. The first two things I wanted to resolve were, is blackness ontological? This had some evidence about signifiers using their signify. I ultimately think the only thing the one I really said on that is what I just said on it, so I found that insufficient. The second question was, is social death a thing? The warrant in both speeches was only slave revolts out of a pretty good card with a lot of other warrants. That's not to say I couldn't decide on that, but I decided to look for ways to resolve the debate without moving into those two questions. So what I ended up voting on is the question of accessibility. I think that even if deconstruction is a good project, it's one that's inaccessible for black people, and that therefore it's more part of civil society than against civil society. And I think that civil society is bad. I also think that takes out some of the app's impacts because it means that there's self-other de-dichotomizing is not for everybody. And that means that there's still a structure of anti-blackness that the app leaves out. The permutation, first, I'm not utterly sure what the net benefit is. Second, I think the fluidity this ad is pretty convincing, at least for me, because I don't think that you specify what sort of desires you're resolving or which desires promote racism, and I think that that sort of cloudy language is what they're pointing out as problematic. I have some other thoughts, but that's the core of my decision.
Okay, I'd like to unfuckify my first I realized I was frazzled because I closed my computer, and really, I think that I agree that this debate was very generic, and I think that I kind of deferred to, I think that the app's characterization of the app, that I decide they don't have a telos. I decide that, well, I wasn't really clear on whether or not they were like narcissistic or not. So I decided, why don't I just read the evidence that says they're narcissistic, and why don't I read the evidence that the app is reading that says they are not doing that? And then I asked myself whether or not that's fluidity. So the negatives argument, the negatives evidence basically suggests that whiteness reproduces itself by constantly making itself redeemable. And for me, that would be like a process of redefining yourself. Now, the negatives evidence, I honestly believe that it was just going to say like, oh, maybe we can rethink like the way that America defines itself. I don't actually think that's what it's saying. My reading of the second to last 1AC card, which is the pan or pon or whatever, says that it's not trying to redefine subjectivity, but rather trying to deconstruct the idea that we can be knowing subjects at all. So for me, it becomes a lot. I think that fundamentally takes out the impact to a lot of the link arguments, which means that whether or not there is a link argument, I think the permutation can function pretty much avoiding a lot of the impact scenarios. I also think that the semiotic claim, for me, maybe I'm reading too far into it, but the semiotic, the app's argument that racism is fundamentally semiotic, for me, makes a lot of sense, again, in context of that second to last card, because I just don't think that there's a good enough like rebuttal to that in terms of like having a specific starting point and stuff. I don't know, I just think the perm works. Yeah, that's me.
Well, you know.
The way that I read that like apologism linked evidence is that any political project that tries to preserve whiteness is a form of white apologism, and I decide that the post-app there's still going to be this concept called whiteness that we interrogate in a way that's productive rather than destructive, and therefore the app is still trying to make whiteness great again, and I think that that's not good. Yeah.
Do you think if we had extended, like, I forget what evidence it was, but the evidence in those two AC saying, like, whiteness is this, like, all-encompassing thing, it's just, like, bad scholarship, do you think that would have taken out that argument?
No, I don't think so, because because you would still be claiming that there is a thing called whiteness that's maybe in these terms of signifiers and signified, it would be like a master signifier that's lost its meaning, but to which other signifiers graph, and that master signifier is still becomes something readable.
So you think like a better explanation of the Hudson evidence than we've done it?
Yeah, I think that you should just win that blackness is not ontological, and therefore the app has a better solvency mechanism because it can change the signifiers and signifiers around the different racial categories. And that's, I think we're on the road to doing that. I think we're on the road to doing that. Yeah, I think if you disprove the fundamental thesis of decay, that blackness is ontological, then you're doing it today. And I think you need a much more thorough defense that, Malcolm, you need to defend that blackness is ontological and answer the warrants of the Brown evidence.
I guess I forgot. I thought there were other arguments that answered Brown on the flow.
Yeah, I mean there are. Like you're constantly saying that blackness is ontological, but Brown also has a lot of warrants for why it's not.
I didn't think they'd get like that kind of the way they'd say it would be right, because the 1AR was just like, to me I perceived it as like if they win this, and we have like two cards that say it is in our analysis, the root cause of blah 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 says it is. I don't know. I was a little bit lazy.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Also, the perm was a delay perm, and you guys also did not extend this delay perm. They didn't answer your delay perm. That was do the app and then do the alt. I thought that would be like a pretty crushing 1AR. Was it not? Was that not the permutation? Wasn't